Monday Night Raw has quite possibly the best match so far in 93. And of course, with Saturday night, nowhere to go but up. Ladies and gentlemen, this is Dropkicks and Attractions. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the newest episode of Dropkicks and Attractions. I am, of course, Xander Invictus, joined by my co-host, Big Bach. How are you, sir?
As we record this, it is wild card weekend in the NFL, and the Browns just got spanked. I'm sad.
Oh, so sad. It must be nice to have a garbage team when my team is the number one seed in the NFC. So,
We beat your team.
we're the number one seed. You're not even in the playoffs anymore.
We tried.
Yeah. Joe Flacco, more like Joe Crapo. Am I right, guys?
Just keep banging that drum. See how far it gets you.
To the Super Bowl. All right, football talk aside. First things first, before we go any farther, I would like to thank everybody who tuned in on YouTube and our podcasting sites this week. As of this recording, we are 5 views away on YouTube for being the most watched episode in history in less than a week.
Very much appreciated, everybody.
The fact that, we were gone for 7 months and you guys show their support to, I'm looking at it right now, 4 views from tying and 5 views from passing our episodes as the most watched episode in the history of the podcast.
Feels good.
So, tonight I am sipping on a C4 as always. Got my favorite, the Skittles flavor. Sir?
I'm on Baja Blast right now.
Ooh, okay. So, we are going to the week of June 21st. It is just a Raw and Saturday night week. We are about a week and a half away from the 4th of July, Yokozuna 4th of July event, which we get into more here, and less than a month away from Beach Blast, which is the next WCW pay-per-view, which we actually have control centers and matches announced. We already knew some of them, but they announced a few matches for Beach Blast.
And I'm looking forward to everything they announced.
They're actually good matches, at least on paper. We'll see how they go when we get to the pay-per-view. We're going to hop right into Raw for June 21st, 93. We're actually in the only other city Raw has been in as of so far. Poughkeepsie, New York. What is it? The Mid-Civic Arena?
Mid-Hudson Civic Center.
Thank you, Mid-Hudson Civic Center in Poughkeepsie. This is the only other arena they've been in so far in the entirety of Raw. And of course, because we are getting the 1-2-3 Kid Razor Ramon rematch, they are showing the ending of the first match they had from several weeks ago, where 1-2-3 Kid won, and then we heard about it every single week since then. Thanks, Vince.
Indeed.
So speaking of Vince, we get him, Randy, and Bobby going over the card. We're talking about we're going to get the 2 out of 3 falls match, and it's kind of funny. Bobby looking under the ring, and he's laughing, like he says there's something underneath there. We'll see what happens.
We will.
Our first match of the night, the new tag team champions, the Steiner Brothers, going up against Barry Hardy and Reno Riggins.
See, I thought I had missed something at this point, because when did they win the tag titles? But then they go on to explain it.
Yeah, there was non-televised events. Like, this rarely happens now. Like, if somebody wins a title on a house show, it's a big deal. Back then, when there wasn't a lot of, like, live TV or it wasn't as big of a deal, you would get more of the title changes. So basically, last Monday, which I believe that would have made Raw a recorded episode the week prior, they won them in Columbus against Money Inc., who then won them 2 days later,
Rockford, Illinois.
And then a couple days after that, the Steiner Brothers won them back again in St. Louis. So we have new tag champs, and this is, Money Inc. is basically the end of Money Inc.
Mm-hmm.
As the top tag team, which, like I said, we talked about earlier during the reign, they had it off and on for a good part of 18 months.
Mm-hmm. Long run.
Yeah, they were a pretty dominant tag team then, but it's, we're moving on. Ted was getting towards the end of his career anyways. So, obviously, new tag champs. So, they're starting off with a Spinning toe hold from Scott going up against the challengers. It's not a non. It's a non-title match, but Shades of Terry Funk with that spinning toe hold, just wrenching the knee.
Yeah, they don't even identify who these guys are. I don't know which one is which.
They did. It was Barry Hardy. They had the lower third. It was Barry Hardy. We've talked about many times on the show. That glorious mullet. He was on the first episode. Who actually wrestled the Steiner Brothers, earned the match with Dwayne Gill, Barry Hardy. I haven't checked lately, but I know pre-pandemic he was wrestling in like Western Ohio, Northwest Western Ohio still.
Cool.
As of a couple years ago, I still haven't seen anything lately. And then the other gentleman was Reno Riggins. So at least we got a lower third. And Saturday night actually did better with the lower thirds this week too.
Gotcha.
We do say that we have mentioned that Rick and Scott both will be taking part in the Body Slam Yokozuna event on the 4th of July, where it's going to be pro wrestlers, any of the athletes.
So Mr. Fuji emphasized it's open to any professional athlete.
Yeah, and they announce more athletes later on, but it's kind of funny. It was either here or when they talk about it again later on in the show. Vince basically said somebody's going to slam Yokozuna, and I'm like, thanks for ruining it. I know they were going to anyways, but
way to kill your build-up.
Yeah, thanks, Vince. So yeah, this was basically just the first match back as champions for the Steiners. I actually did like the one move I did like was Rick pull off basically a reverse power slam, where instead of grabbing having them face to face, the gentleman's back was basically like a belly to back type thing, and he just rammed the guy in the corner.
Yeah, it looked a little bit like a reverse tree of woe.
Sort of, kind of like a power slam and did a tree of woe. We get to the finish. Scott, singles forward, goes for the Frankensteiner. Holy shit, I cringed because Reno Riggins landed, spiked himself on the head.
Yeah, that did not look good. Yeah, the match was 4 minutes flat, and I think it was a good start.
It was a good start. It was just, even when I was watching that back then, I even cringed. I was like, oh god, that hurt. That looked like that hurt.
Yeah.
Yeah, like I said, it did its job. We got new tag champs. Good way to display your new tag champs. No notes.
No notes, agreed.
And then, as we talked about at the top of the show, right now, this is my vote for WWE's Match of the Year. We're in late June. We're already talking about Match of the Year. This is easily not even close to my choice so far.
I'm going to have to agree with you on that. This next match, Doink and Marty Jannetty, 2 out of 3 falls, amazing.
Yeah, we'll get into the details here in a moment. And then I mentioned to it last week's show that at the time I used to own a DVD set. It was the best moments of Raw, the first 2 years of Raw.
Mm-hmm.
And this match in its entirety was on there. So that's the first time I had seen it. And I was like, and I wasn't as familiar, hadn't been as familiar lately because this was, early 2010s.
Mm-hmm.
I hadn't gone back and watched 93 Raw. And when I was watching, I wasn't interested in who was good, who was a good wrestler, who wasn't, or whatever. So this was surprised me the first time I saw it that, wait, Doink and Marty Jannetty had an amazing match.
I gotcha.
And holy shit, it was. But apparently Bobby was talking about how Bill Clinton's half brother's under the ring. That's why he was laughing. He's hiding from the law. And for 2 out of 3 falls match, you want to pace yourself because who knows, you got to win 2 falls. You don't know how long it's going to last. Yeah, they did. They just went hardcore into each other as soon as this match started.
This was all offense right from the get-go.
There was this great spot early on where they're doing the crisscross spot in the ring, and Marty stopped himself and he was like, "Uh-oh, whoa, here it come, whoa," and Doink just kept on going. Like for somebody that Doink was known for playing his mind games, especially early on when he was wrestling clean and it was 3 people. Marty Jannetty decided to throw some of his own mind games into it and just frustrated the hell out of Doink.
Gotcha.
I thought this was kind of funny, just making him run extra, tiring him out. And there was this really dope arm drag by Marty that came out of nowhere too. And we get a close pinfall from Marty after a backslide. And so we go in, and this is the thing. Randy Savage is known as one of the greatest talkers of all time.
Yeah, I've been able to pick up on that from what we've seen over the course of the podcast.
Yeah, like his early promos, especially, the promos from the 80s, even like, into the 90s once he went to WCW, he could talk. And obviously he could. We can hear him on the mic here. I heard what might be one of the craziest, okay, Randy moments that I've ever heard. Because like I said, this is a 2 out of 3 falls match. You have to win twice. Randy actually says that there's no guarantee this will even go 1 fall. Except it's 2 out of 3 falls. But It may not go even one fall because they're evenly matched.
And there's no time limit, right?
Yeah.
You know, there's no guarantee that this is going to go even one fall here. It's set for 2 out of 3 falls, but they're evenly matched right here. It's going back and forth.
Yeah. So Marty, for the first part of the first fall, was almost in control for the majority of it, but he got one, high risk, high reward. He did not get rewarded. Doink countered Marty, and we got a whoopee cushion, and Doink is up 1-0.
Yeah, that fall took 7 minutes 17 from the opening, from the first bell to the pin.
Yep, and we go to commercial for like the rest period, and Doink's in full control with Marty when we come back.
Yeah, it's all Doink at this point.
Yeah, and then Vince announces more athletes from they're going to slam Yokozuna. I know one of them was Freilich. Bill Freilich played for the Falcons.
I tried looking him up, but I couldn't find anything. It was weird.
But we know his brother because his brother was Mike Freilich, who played on Saved by the Bell the New Year's, or excuse me, not New Year's, the college years, which we covered in one of our early episodes. He was the faculty advisor for the dorm room.
Oh, that's who that was. Okay.
They're brothers.
Cool.
So bringing it back to one of the old episodes that we can go back to somebody who watched Saved by the Bell as a kid, didn't like that show, and you can find out why. But there was a funny spot. There was this funny thing where, because they said any athlete of any sport, and Bobby's like, oh, Martina's going to be there. Who? Martina said she's going to come in and slam. And Randy goes, Martina Navratilova, the tennis great?
Huh?
Bobby goes, no, Martina Feldman, she's a jockey from Jersey.
I forgot about that.
Yeah.
Oh, God, that's amazing.
Yeah, and I can just imagine it because jockeys are known to be small people, and then you got a small female on top of that trying to slam Yokozuna.
Right.
Yeah, so it was great. I was just thought that. And they go this, and Marty lands an absolutely just solid super kick on Doink. Like the sound.
Yeah, like that. I wouldn't be surprised if that one connected.
There might have been a little bit, but just the sound of it, you're just like, oh, dear Jesus. And that could have been the fall right there. Marty went for the pin, but Doink had his foot up in the ropes. He was way too close to the ropes.
Mm-hmm.
Marty was able to go high risk again. This time you got the high reward with a top rope fist drop, and Marty does tie this up one apiece.
Yeah, second fall took 4 minutes, 39 seconds.
We go back to commercial, and we get in there, and Doink is once again in control with Marty, working on his leg because, he's the high flyer, but a lot of power, people don't realize power comes from your legs too. If you can't legs, you can't, pick people up, toss people, slam people. You also can't jump.
Right.
And Marty is locked into a figure 4 in the middle of the ring.
Yeah, crowd's getting loud for him at this point.
Yeah, and I remember this. They're talking about, the reversal. There's a reversal of the figure 4. I remember one of my favorite things to watch on the network or Peacock, whatever you want to call it now, depending on what part of the world you're in, is old Mid-South wrestling from the 81, 82. Absolutely love it. Ted DiBiase, this was, years before he was the $1 Million Man, was the top babyface. And his finisher was the figure 4, and he was like, my finisher, the figure 4, there's no counter for it. Once I lock it in, it's impossible to break. And they had the storyline where he was going up against somebody, and we'll talk about who it was later on because they will be seen later on in this episode. He's like, I figured out the counter to the figure 4, and DiBiase said, no, you haven't, and you know what the counter was?
What was it?
The rollover, like they did here, where they just kind of rolled it over to exchange the pressure.
Right, yeah, we've actually talked about that before. It's just coming back to me now.
Yeah, and the guy he was feuding with is actually talked about later on in this episode, so we'll talk about who that was later on.
Mm-hmm.
And then Doink actually transitions this into an STF. He's still working on that leg.
Doink goes up top after Marty's able to get out of there, and Marty throws him like a rocket launcher.
Yeah, because it looked like he had Marty dead to rights, so he's like, hey, I'm going for the whoopee cushioning in, and Marty just hops up, basically on one leg, and just straight chucks him like a piece of trash.
Yikes.
And as this is happening, second Doink comes out and goes under the ring, and Bobby's like, I don't know what happened. Well, what happened? My monitor went out. And Vince is like, dumbass, we're using the same monitor. I was distracted. I don't know what happened. And it's obvious, like, the face paint's different because at this point, they're wrestling for a long time. Most of Doink's face paint's gone.
You say he sweated it off, like, clean.
Yeah, it's not hard to sweat in wrestling, trust me.
Right.
So they go through and they do the whole spot outside. They're fighting outside. And the Doink switch. And the new Doink hits a pile driver. And he gets the fall.
Bell-to-bell time on that last fall was 8 minutes, 45 seconds.
So, we're going on over 20 minutes between commercials and everything else. This was over 20 minutes.
Yeah, this was definitely a good half the show.
Oh, easy. But here's the thing. Randy's like, no, this is bullshit. Goes to the ring, talks to Earl Hebner, shows everybody what happened. He pulls out the first Doink, who's out on, underneath the ring.
Mm-hmm.
We actually get it. They reverse the decision. Marty actually wins this.
Yeah, that doesn't happen a lot. It's not then from what I've seen, and not now.
Not really. But damn good match. This, honestly, like I said at the top of the show, this was the best match WWE put on this year so far.
So yeah, this is going to be hard to top this.
Pay-per-views included.
Agreed.
Yeah, this was great. No, obviously no notes. This is what I was like. First time I saw this blew my mind, and watching this back, I was like, yeah, this match is still good.
Yeah, this absolutely holds up.
Yeah. So we go to commercial, and we come back to Mr. Hughes, who's got the urn because he stole the urn from Undertaker. He's got the dents from when he beat Paul Bearer with it. Going up against Bobby who?
Bobby who?
I don't know. I didn't get his last name. It was Bobby who? I didn't catch his last name.
Huh.
Yeah, no, that was the joke they put on throughout the match.
Right.
And we find out, like, how last week we talked about how one of the ring girls was an attorney?
Mm-hmm.
Apparently this girl, not only is she a ring girl, not only is she an attorney, not only is she a fitness trainer, she's also an aerobics instructor.
Good grief.
I'm sure she also raises cattle at some point too. Sure, why not? Speaking of big things, I was surprised on how decent Mr. Hughes had a dropkick just for his size. He wasn't known as like a speedy big man, like a Keith Lee or like a Brian Cage now.
But yeah, he's got good ups for his bulk.
Yeah, like you don't have like a guy like a Keith Lee now or like even like a Brian Cage. You didn't have guys like that back then. If you're a big guy like that, you didn't move.
Yeah.
And that was actually surprisingly decent dropkick for a guy that size.
Yeah, definitely.
And, I was listening to all this match, and all of a sudden I was like, woo, USA's having a Porky's marathon. I love those movies.
I haven't seen them.
You probably won't either, because those are your, Porky's is probably your quintessential 80s high school sex comedy romp.
Gotcha.
Anybody that knows this movie knows the glory hole in the shower scene.
Yeah.
No, it's hilarious.
Okay.
The second Porky's is absolutely hot fucking garbage. It is not good. I watched it on Tubi a couple years ago, and I was like, oh no.
Oh geez. If you don't like it, then.
And I remember watching the third one. Like, the third one was called Porky's Revenge.
Mm-hmm.
I remember watching that one first. I remember watching that more on TV. I'd have to go back and watching it. Obviously, I was a kid, so those kind of movies when you're like 10 or younger.
Right.
Ooh, pretty girls, boobies, whatever. I have to go back and watch the third one again to see if I like it. But the first one's great. First one's a classic. But basically, this was Mr. Hughes hitting a big man move, like a power slam or a power bomb or something, picking the guy up, breaking the pinfall. Another power move, breaking the pinfall. And he finally hits his boss man slam finisher for the win.
Yep, that took 3 minutes flat.
Yeah. It's further in Mr. Hughes and The Undertaker. There's really not much to say about this match.
No, it was just there.
Other than I want to go watch Porky's after we're done recording. So we get to the match that, we've been building for weeks. The 1, 2, 3 Kid versus Razor Ramon and $10,000. As long as the Kid shows up, he gets the $10,000, and we'll see what happens with that because Kid comes out. Bunch of quick falls. He's using that speed he has. He's smaller and faster. He's going to use that speed to disorient Razor, and he gets a bunch of quick falls early on.
Yeah, he's going for a lot of covers, like forcing Razor to kick out, use his energy.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, power versus speed, and then Razor answers with a fall-away slam, and that's about it for the rest of the match because Razor Ramon beats the absolute dog shit. And it was, instead of him owing the Kid money, he was beating the Kid like the Kid owed him money.
Yeah.
And I kind of like the story with that, though. This is not just, I'm going to squash him just because. This is like, look, you embarrassed me in front of everybody. You've been dodging me for weeks. I'm going to punish the shit out of you. And this is basically what it was. So I was like, in a way, the squashing worked storyline-wise, so this wasn't just a normal squash match.
Gotcha.
What I did notice that they were on the outside, they were fighting on the outside. He was going to hit the Razor's Edge on the exposed concrete.
Yeah, he pulled the mats up.
Yeah, Kid was able to backdrop him, and he's going for a top rope, from the top to the floor.
Mm-hmm.
Scary moment where he actually slipped and fell.
Oh, geez, I didn't notice that.
Yeah, I know. I had to go back. So did he catch? He was like, no, he slipped, and thankfully he's okay.
Yeah,
He was okay, but no, it was a scary tumble there, like foot slipping. Because like once again, high risk, high reward.
yeah. It looked like it was a flying nothing. I guess because he botched the move.
No, not even a flying nothing. It was he accidentally slipped and hurt himself.
Gotcha.
They repeat the finish where the kid goes for his moonsault, but Razor kicks out. Kid's like, nah, I'm done. He took the money and ran out. He's like, I'm out.
Oh, yeah, he pieced right the fuck out.
Got in the car and was gone. So, but they do consider this a double count out.
Yeah, bell to bell time, 5 minutes 14. Good match.
Yeah, I didn't mind it. Like, once again, the story of Razor beating the shit out of a kid, I get it. It makes sense.
Yes.
We're continuing the feud. Like, once again, this is where, like, it continues the feud where I don't mind that there was a non-finish because it works.
Right.
Obviously we're going to continue to see where this goes between Razor Ramon and the kid. And he comes out, calls him Stickman, and says he's not going to be able to hide because Razor will find him and basically get his proverbial pound of flesh.
Mm-hmm.
And so we go back to one last commercial. They come back next week. Not only we're getting appearance of Yokozuna, because this is the final Raw before the 4th. Next week is going to be the final Raw before the 4th of July.
Mm-hmm.
We're getting an Intercontinental title match next week.
Looking forward to it.
We're getting Shawn Michaels is going to defend against the Ugandan giant Kamala, which is not going to be no easy feat.
Good match on paper.
Yeah, we'll see how it goes. Overall, Raw was good. Another good Raw.
I would grade a B plus.
Yeah, once again, the Marty Doink match carried Raw for the second week in a row.
Agreed.
And once again, like I talked about at the beginning of the episode, WCW had nowhere to go but up after last week.
Yeah.
Because once again we discussed how this was the worst WCW Saturday night since we started the show. So, but we're going into our first match. We're getting the Four Horsemen, Arn Anderson and Paul Roma, going up against Don Brody and Warren Quinn. Because thank you WCW, you remembered how to use the lower third.
Thank goodness.
Yeah, and the microphone worked for Gary Michael Capetta.
Uh-huh.
And they were talking about, and I agree with Jesse, that Arn was legit one of the best tag wrestlers of all time.
Yeah, and I can see that here. He's carrying Paul Roma.
Well, not only that, just the fact that I will go ahead and spoil, they go on to win the tag titles. So he is a tag title holder with Paul Roma.
Mm-hmm.
He won it once, a tag reign with Ole Anderson, like early Horseman. He won it twice with Tully Blanchard. The NWA WCW time frame. He won it once with Larry Zbyszko. He won it once with Bobby Eaton. He won it another time in WWF with Tully Blanchard. He was the Pro Wrestling Illustrated Tag Team of the Year in '89 with Tully Blanchard. Tag Team of the Year in '91 with Larry Zbyszko.
Wow, that's a hell of a tag resume.
And he was also considered one of the best TV champions because he also held that 4 times.
Wow.
Let's put it this way. He's already in the Hall of Fame with the Horsemen. You could make the case that his tag team with Blanchard was known in WWF as the Brainbusters.
Uh-huh.
You could make the case for them as a tag team to be put in the Hall of Fame solo as a tag team.
Gotcha.
You could make the case for him to be a solo act put in the Hall of Fame.
And I'm looking forward to seeing where we go with his story overall.
Yeah, like what I'm saying is like Arn is one of the greatest. And they showed here, like, this was just a basic match, basically Arn doing what Arn does. And I was surprised the power that Paul Roma had, because at one point he picked up one of the gentlemen for a triple backbreaker and picked him up like there was no effort.
I saw that spot. That looked pretty nasty.
Like triple backbreaker, and then held him so Arn could come in and get a couple shots in. Like, that's not easy.
Definitely not.
And then, we get the classic spine buster, but, Paul Roma had a wonderful splash, so we had the spine buster splash combo for the win.
3 minutes, 3 seconds. Again, good start.
Mm-hmm. And we come back from commercial. Tony and Jesse are talking about Beach Blast. We're going to get our first Beach Blast Command Center, which we do go to next. Eric is in the Beach Blast Control Center. They confirm, even though we already knew it was going to happen, they confirm we are getting the Masters of the Powerbomb versus Sting and Bulldog in the main event.
Mm-hmm.
Rick Rude, Dustin Rhodes, 30-minute Iron Man match for the U.S. title. That's going to be amazing.
And that's exactly what I put in my notes. That's going to be amazing.
Yeah. We're going to get the Hollywood Blondes versus Arn Anderson and Roma for the titles. That's going to be good.
And I was confused for a sec why no Ric Flair, but then we go into Barry Windham versus Ric Flair for the NWA title. That's why.
Which is going to be good.
Yeah, all of these matches have potential on paper.
On paper, this is shaping up to be a hell of a card. And then we cut to a segment where on WCW, I think they said worldwide, where Windham and Flair do get physical.
And yeah, this is a fucking brawl all over the place.
Yeah, like, no, I'm great. Like, if the match is anything, like, I honestly have not seen this match.
Mm-hmm.
I know who wins, but I haven't seen it. So if the match is anything like this,
it's gonna be fire.
Shit. We come back from commercial. Tony is back with Teddy Long, and we are not getting the Too Cold Scorpio Bagwell match versus the Wrecking Crew because they had bad weather, so their flight was delayed, which apparently, we're recording this on January 13th. Apparently that's happening all over indie wrestling because we got horrible weather.
Oh yeah, it's gonna get crappy tonight.
The Wrecking Crew basically just come out and say, you know, whenever they come back, we're going to beat their ass and there's nothing you can do about it. And Teddy's like, yeah, you know, they're training right now. I'm going to go back and make sure the training's proper. And there we go.
Mm-hmm.
So we go into our next match, Max Payne versus Dave Hart. We do get a recap of the moment at the Clash where he shot the Bad Blaster in Johnny B. Bad's face.
As you do.
Yeah. And I do want to say something with Max Payne. One of my big pet peeves, I'm a big heavy metal, hard rock fan. Like, you know this. One of my favorite genres of music is rock music.
Mm-hmm.
One of my big pet peeves is when people don't know how to do the metal horns right.
Right.
At least Max Payne can do the metal horns.
Gotcha.
Because it's the index finger and the pinky. It's not the index finger, the pinky, and the thumb. That's I love you in sign language.
I did not know that.
Yeah, it's... Everybody does the freaking... I love you, and it bugs me when it's like, yeah, we're throwing up metal horns, but where I'm saying I love you and said, no, it's the pinky and the index finger.
Right.
Because it's supposed to be devil horns, you know.
Mm-hmm.
Because heavy metal's the devil's music, you know.
Yeah.
People used to say that KISS stood for Knights in Satan's Service.
And I remember way back when we were planning this out, we were going to review Detroit Rock City, and I heard that there.
Yeah, no, that movie's great. That movie's a fun romp. But yeah, Painkiller, Slam Painkiller for the win.
55 seconds, standard enhancement match.
Yeah, I didn't mind it.
It was there.
Yeah, it was there. It did its part. You know, we're continuing Johnny B. Bad versus Max Payne. This is what this was for.
Mm-hmm.
Speaking of good shit, we come back to Flair for the Gold. Flair for the Gold has been on fire every single time.
Not a dud in the bunch.
Nope. And Flair's coming out in a cowboy hat and jeans because who's our guest this week?
Dusty fucking Rhodes.
Thank you. And I love this whole thing because Dusty Rhodes, as of this point right now, he's kind of like backstage. He's doing like producing, kind of help running the show in the back. So Ric Flair comes out, the Canadian tuxedo with the cowboy hat and cowboy boots.
Mm-hmm.
You know, Ric Flair's known for the suits, right? He always comes out in the nice tailored suits, very expensive. Right. Dusty Rhodes, he's the common man, jeans, t-shirts, cowboy boots. What does Dusty come out in?
He comes out in a three-piece suit, and holy shit, he is broad.
Yeah, but it's just the funny that's like, hey, we got the common man in the suit, and we got Ric Flair in jeans and a friggin' like the Canadian tuxedo, and they're all like, see what? Look at you, common man come out in the suit. It's like, look at you. And I was like, that's kind of cool.
Mm-hmm.
They do talk about this, and the funny thing is that I think you could make the case for either Sting or Dusty Rhodes as Flair's biggest rival. I think that's a 1A, 1B. That's how much of a rivalry they had.
Gotcha.
Like I think Dusty Rhodes Sting is 1A, 1B, Flair's biggest rival of all time.
Gotcha.
And they just two of them, like on the, you could see like on the mic, these guys, you know, when they had their feuds and they're going on the mic back and forth, you saw it right here. These guys were just bam, 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 bam.
Amazing.
Yeah, and they're going over the bleach. Oh my god, I just did Bleach Blast again. Son of a bitch. Beach Blast, because they're not sponsored by Clorox.
No.
Not yet. They're going over the card. And this is just great watching them riff back and forth on the card. And then for some reason, for a set, this is obviously an interview set, the doorbell rings.
Yeah, I noticed that.
I was like, okay. And out comes the assassin.
Shit just gets real.
Yeah, because Ric Flair's like, hey. Because, you know, Dusty's there. But he's like, all right, talk your shit. Uh-huh. 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 And then he basically said, yo, I called your mom. You want to know what your mom said to me?
Oh, God.
And I was like, Dusty stood up, and Ric Flair's like, hey, no, 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 no. Then all of a sudden you heard Ric Flair's like, hey, Dusty, let me hold your watch. Because he's like, this is going to happen. Just give me your watch.
What purpose does that serve? Is that like, let me get that out of the way so you don't break it punching someone?
Yeah, because they got ready to fight. Ric Flair's like, hey, just give me your watch.
Okay, never knew that.
Yeah, well, because it's like, it'd be like, yo, hold my glass. Because I wear glasses. We're in a fight. I look at you and I go, here, hold my glasses.
Gotcha. Now I get
You know what I'm saying? If my glasses come off, I'm about to fight somebody.
Right.
You know what I mean? Or like if somebody, the moment where like somebody takes their hat off or their jacket comes up, you're like, oh no. If I gotta take my watch off, because normally Dusty had a Rolex. Dusty was known for a Rolex. Ric Flair was dealing with the Rolex.
Mm-hmm.
I'm a watch guy. I'm not a big jewelry guy. I do like a good watch. Watches can be expensive.
So I've seen.
Yeah. So, he's like, yo, it's like when the women start fighting, the earrings come off, you're like, oh shit. But basically, this was just them getting ready to argument. They're going to fight. We're going to see where this goes, because there's some payoff later on down the road.
So yeah, Assassin's talking mad shit, Dusty starts talking back, security enters, abrupt end of segment.
Yeah, which I think it's nice to have an abrupt end. It was a different ending where it's an abrupt end because you're like, shit, we need to stop this right now.
Gotcha.
Once again, Flair for the gold, batting 100.
Agreed.
So we come back to our match. Everybody already in the ring. We get Masters of the Powerbomb versus
Yeah, I don't think these guys were even named.
No. And they were talking about how, because we got Colonel Parker, Jesse said that there's 5 guys out there. Tony's like, I see 4. And he goes, yeah, Elvis, because the Colonel Parker.
Right, that gag.
And then the first thing I thought of was like, God, I want 5 guys right now. But basically, I tell you, speaking of Jesus, Sid whips Vader into a guy with a corner splash, who then throws the guy into a massive big boot from Sid. I was like, God damn!
Are you trying to kill the guy?
The ref is trying to stop the match. They're like, no, we're bringing in the other guy too. He can rest on the mat. We're bringing the other guy in. Thunderfire powerbomb for Vader for the win.
2 minutes, 12 seconds. Enhancement.
But I loved it because we're putting over just how scary and vicious these guys are.
Agreed.
Beach Blast is probably, about 3 weeks away?
That sounds about right.
Roughly. And we mentioned this last week, and we'll mention it here again. For those that are new to the show, when we do pay-per-views, they get an entire episode will be dedicated to Beach Blast.
Right, a lot more to talk about with the pay-per-view because it's a lot more content.
Yeah, overall, WCW Saturday Night's been actually pretty damn good, almost the 180 from last week.
Agreed. I've been happy with this whole show to this point.
Yeah, and then we get another Catch as Jack segment.
Yeah.
And it looks like the exact same alley from last week. It's like they just filmed multiple segments right here.
You see, I think she was back in the same place, or at least was intended to be.
Because they do say that Catch as Jack was the one that saved her purse last week. So yeah, that makes sense. And then apparently, remember, we're in Cleveland. I know we have the Cuyahoga River. We have Lake Erie. But for some reason, because of his amnesia, Catch as Jack is a sea captain.
Because of course.
Without his facial hair.
I think this segment in this story was the least cringe so far, but still not good.
Yeah, no, this wasn't good whatsoever. This is like, what piece of shit's the prettiest?
Right.
It was this one. Oh, by the way, they're going to be in Cleveland next week.
Oh boy.
There's at least one more of these. So we get to our main event of the week of the show, and we're getting, once again, my all-time favorite wrestler, Ricky the Dragon Steamboat, and Ron Simmons versus Mr. Wonderful Paul Orndorff and Dick Slater. And Tony, bless his heart, he's like, Catch as Jack has the amnesia after he took that power bomb to the floor and cracked his head and all this.
Mm-hmm.
Tony's like, is that Catches? Could that be? And we're like, Tony, he just shaved his face. He didn't get plastic surgery. It's not a guy pretending to be Catch as Jack. Tony, you're better than this.
Right.
Ron, right off the bat, Ron just power slams Dick Slater, and he's just like power slam yeet and just tosses him with it.
Yeah, that was a very fast opening.
He was like, whoop! And people forget just how strong Steamboat was because he was able to force that hip toss from Slater, who was bigger than he was, and fought that backslide. Steamboat wasn't a power guy, but he was still stronger than people would assume.
He was strong, but he didn't use it as his focus for his style.
No, because he was the speedy guy. He was the high flyer. Like I said, his finisher was the crossbody off the top. This was the quick guy. Who, by the way, speaking of Ric Flair, these matches these guys had are some of the greatest of all time. multiple times. They have multiple matches that you would consider 5 stars, multiple. And then we do see that Orndorff had his upper leg taped because they Clash of the Champions from the week prior was supposed to be Ron Simmons and Orndorff, but Slater took his spot because of an injury. Like I don't remember the Saturday night before Clash of the Champions if it was taped up, but it was like it looked like it taped up maybe like the upper leg,
I think they said it was a groin injury.
like a groin injury. You could see where that part would be taped for a groin. I pulled a groin muscle slight one time. I was running and I felt something pulled and I was like, oh, that hurts.
Oh, geez.
I was doing sprints when I was in PT one day, and I was just like, I'm running, huh? Like it was just a tiny, like I just pulled a little bit. It was like I was good within a couple hours,
Uh-huh.
but it was just the fact you're like, so I was the heels take over Steamboat, and I like this. This wasn't a all time great match, but I liked it was the basics. You got the heel, the Ricky Steamboat, and the tag team would always play the great face in peril half of a tag team. The damage he could take, he could elicit sympathy from the crowd like nobody else.
Yeah.
And this was just classic. We're going to, cut off the ring. We're going to focus on a leg. And I like they're focusing on a knee because, leg damage. And then on top of that, you take away a lot of Steamboat's moveset if you get rid of his, the power in these legs.
Right.
And they have the hot tag. Like the good majority of the middle of the match was them focusing on Steamboat, wrapping his leg around the ring post. Yet another figure four. There was a lot of figure fours this week on both shows.
Yeah.
Hot take from Simmons, who was nimbly got up the top rope and got a shoulder block.
Yeah, that was nasty.
He was quick too. He got up there with a purpose.
Yeah.
The match breaks down. Looks like they're gonna Slater and Orndorff are gonna whip Simmons and Steamboat into each other. Steamboat reverses Slater to toss him into Simmons, who pops him with a shoulder block into a roll up for the win for the good guys.
8 minutes, 56 seconds. Great main event.
Oh yeah, this was great. Once again, no notes.
Agreed. No notes.
Yeah, great match. This was way better than the Orndorff Steamboat match from the week prior.
Definitely.
100% better. We come back from commercial. We get the Blondes who are coming out talking about they're still calling out the Horsemen. We're going to continue the Blondes Horseman feud, which I have no problems with.
Definitely not.
Especially since they announced the main event for next week, and I was like, whoo, whoo.
Oh yeah, that's going to be fire.
We're going to get a 6-man tag next week. Brian Pillman, Steve Austin, and Barry Windham are going to go up against Ric Flair, Arn Anderson, and Paul Roma next week.
Oh, that's going to be amazing.
That's so good. That's the way to end the show.
Agreed. Perfect ending.
It was a shorter match. Like I said, we didn't have a Clash of the Champions or a third show this week, so we're going relatively... This was a relatively short week. Like, there was a lot of short matches.
Yeah, and Saturday night this week was only an hour, so...
Yeah, sometimes that was the thing with Saturday night. Sometimes it was an hour. Sometimes it was an hour and a half. Sometimes it was 2 hours.
Yeah, from what I've seen, it's usually 2 hours TV time, 90 minutes without commercials.
Yeah, it was basically a lot of... It was basically however long it needed to be because of whatever reason, because of TBS. That's how long it was. What was your favorite match? I'm not even... I want to ask this just because we ask every week, but I already know your answer. What was your favorite match of Raw?
Doink and Marty Jannetty, not even a question.
Yeah, no, not even a question. And then, by the way, my favorite match of the entire episode. That's not even a question. Not even remotely close.
Agreed.
And for Saturday night, myself, I think the main event was the best match, the Steamboat and Simmons tag match.
I gotta agree with you on that, too.
It was just classic basic heel versus face tag team match.
Yeah, basic works.
Yeah, that's Southern style. Like, once again, I had no problems with either show, but obviously... It's not even remotely close on what the best match of the show was.
Definitely not.
Yeah, that's great. We are, like I said, about a week and a half away from the Yokozuna.
4th of July challenge.
On the Intrepid? I think it's the Intrepid. I think it is.
Yeah, it's the Intrepid.
We'll talk about that when we get there. We have one more Raw, and then we'll talk about it after the fact. And then, so we got that coming up. We got Beach Blast in about 3 weeks. So we got a lot of stuff going on. So... I forgot. Remind me sometime during this week or so. We'll put the mini movie up.
Yeah.
Also, I do want to thank somebody because this episode of Saturday Night was not on Peacock. For some reason, I don't know why they put up... If you're going to put up a show, whether it's Saturday Night, WAF Superstars, they don't put up every episode.
Yeah, we're in the middle of a block where there's about a month where WCW Saturday Night just isn't there.
Yeah, like, and it's just random, like, you'll get, like... here's an episode, and then 4 months later, you'll get an episode from like 4 months later. It's like, it would, I like some, especially with the older shows, it's consistency. I do
Yeah.
want to thank somebody, because if you follow him on Twitter, he's also on Twitch and TikTok. It's at not that Tom Green. He does a lot of stuff what we does, but he focuses on WCW, a lot of the obscure stuff. He does a lot of like pro, Power Hour, super, any of the WCW stuff. And he has every once in a while he'll put up a notice on Twitter. He has a special drive where he keeps all the episodes, and he only has stuff up there that's not on Peacock. And it's nice if you want to. Do you want to watch WCW Pro from April of '91? Sure, I have them right here, and it's just fun to go back and watch those. So follow him on Twitter, because he likes to put clips of shows up there. He does a show every Tuesday on Twitch around 9 p.m. Eastern, where he'll watch a couple random episodes of like Pro, or like he did the WXO, which is one of those failed wrestling promotions. He does that. Like he's always watching cool stuff on Twitch. He has a TikTok page where he calls the WCW Deep Cut, and it's like some random obscure WCW. Like I'm familiar with the majority of it, but even some are like, huh, okay, that's cool. I remember the Super Invader, or a guy that had one match with Tank Abbott and ended up getting a knife pulled on him on live pay-per-view.
What?
Yeah, that's late. That's late era, like 99, 2000 WCW. We'll get there eventually.
Gotcha.
Or be like, oh, do you remember this random obscure character? So if you like our content, please follow the guy. He's a great guy. I've talked to him a handful of times. Fantastic guy. Like I said, if you love it, like our content, you're gonna love his stuff. Please go follow him. Huge thank you to him, because if it wasn't for him, we wouldn't have been able to do this episode. Like I said, whenever he goes online, I think it's like you PayPal him $5, he gives you access to the drive.
Yeah, it's a Google Drive folder.
Yeah, and like I said, we wouldn't have been able to do all the show without him. So thank you for Tom. Possibly, maybe I would love to have him come on the show for one of the WCW pay-per-views.
Would be awesome.
Yeah, especially around this time frame, because a lot of his stuff is right now the same time frame that we're doing. He does a lot of the same time frame, so obviously I would love to have him on the show. For right now, you can find us on YouTube, Rumble, basically any podcasting sites. Where can we find you on social media, sir?
I am at BigBoct, BIGBOCT, pretty much everywhere.
And any upcoming projects for you?
Nothing at the moment, just a couple of things I'm workshopping that I mentioned last week.
Okay. As for me, you can find me, Zaner and Victus, everywhere. Twitter, Instagram, TikTok, X-Twitter, whatever it is. On Twitch, I do a lot of Diablo 4 stuff on Twitch. My YouTube channel is going to start doing some more Diablo stuff there. Hopefully, the new season starts in about a week and a half, so we're going to be doing jumping into the new season about a week and a half with stuff. And yeah, once again, thank you everybody for all the support. Once again, I'm looking it up right now. We are still 4 views out. We're very close to tying the record for our highest watched episode in 5 days. That episode was a year ago. So thank you everybody, and we will see you next week.
Take care.